Hello, dear friends and dear teacher. Today we will introduce and explain climate adaptation, and it's our topic. And I will start climate adaptation. And firstly, what is climate adaptation? Climate adaptation involves preparing for and adjusting to the effects of climate change. It includes action like building seawalls, developing droughts, resistant crops, and implementing early warning systems. The goal is to reduce vulnerability and increase resilience to climate change impacts in communities, ecosystem, and economies. Understanding the impacts of climate change, it's so important this space. Why? Because global temperature rise, changing ecosystem, and human health, these are the three main things. And global temperature rise, increasing temperatures exacerbate natural disasters such as droughts, heat waves, and wildfires. The frequency and intensity of extreme weather events increase. Changing ecosystems, melting glaciers and Arctic sea ice, rising sea levels, and ocean acidification all have huge implications. Biodiversity loss, including extinction, bring huge risk for humanity, human health, and the public's health will be impacted both direct through heat-related deaths and undirected through the expansion of disease vectors. You see, understanding the impacts of climate change, we have to understand three main things. Global temperature rise, it's so important. Second, changing ecosystems and human health. And these three sectors, it's affected with themselves. And let's continue sensitivity to climate change. It's especially sensitive to climate change is a special topic because women, children, indigenous people, and older persons. And let's start. Vulnerability to climate change varies based on factors like gender, age, income, ethnicity, and location. Identifying vulnerable sectors and populations is essential for designing effective adaptation policies and strategies. Women and children. Women and children are highly vulnerable to climate change, facing increased risks and impacts due to limited adaptive capacities and health vulnerabilities. Indigenous people. Indigenous peoples, marginalized and reliant on traditional livelihoods and natural resource, face heightened vulnerability to climate change. Older persons, elderly individuals are susceptible to climate change induced health issues, including heat waves and extreme weather events. And you see, it's so important, and we have to carry and we have sensitive women, children, indigenous people, and older persons, and they are affecting to climate change a little bit more than us. And we have to carry climate change for next future, and not just us. We have to carry for our next children, uh, maybe our children, children's children, and next generations. It's so important. Global temperature rise, changing ecosystem, human health, and sensitive to women, children, indigenous peoples, and older persons. And if we want to live in this world to the infinity, it's maybe impossible. But if we will live in this world more longer times, we have to carry we have to carry the climate adaptation we have to carry. And my part is finished, and thank you for listening. My another friends will continue. Thank you.
Next title, types of adaptation. Preventive adaptation focuses on measures taken to prevent or reduce future climate impacts. Climate resilient infrastructure investment early warning system for natural disaster, contingency plans for emergencies, promoting healthy lifestyles and sustainable practice. And some of examples: Tokyo, Japan, earthquake-resistant infrastructure, strict building codes and early warnings, and Copenhagen, Denmark, bicycle infrastructure, extensive bike lanes and rides, interactive adaptation, response to events or changes that have already occurred due to climate impacts, rebuilding and reinforcing infrastructure after storms, constructing cyclone shelters in vulnerable coastal areas, enhancing firefighting capabilities and regulations for wildfire mitigating, improving drainage infrastructure and flood response protocols. And some of examples: New Orleans, USA, Hurricane Katrina recovery, rebuilding levees and structure building codes, and Bangladesh cyclone shelters, constructions of elevated shelters for temporary refuge during cyclones. And next title, adaptive capacity. Ability to adjust and cope with climate change impacts, anticipating and planning for future change, learning from past experience, accessing and utilizing resource and technologies. And examples: Costa Rica, ambitious targets for carbon neutrality, policies promoting renewable energy, forest conservation, and ecotourism.
Resilience is the capacity of a system or community to resist changing conditions and perform its functions. Resilience in climate adaptation is vital for a sustainable future. Measures include planning, infrastructure improvements, natural resource conservation, and education. Global cooperation is essential to combat climate change and increase resilience. If give an example of the resilience, Rotterdam, Netherlands, Singapore, Copenhagen, and Norway are examples of resilient countries and cities. Rotterdam is a global leader in climate adaptation, while Singapore focuses on water management, urban planning, and food security. Copenhagen prioritizes sustainable urban planning. Norway invests in renewable energy and natural resources, ensuring a long-term sustainability and sustainable future. These examples serve as inspiring models for building resilience and a sustainable future. Climate risk. Climate change brings various risks with significant impact on natural and human system. Climate adaptation aims to minimize these effects by creating resistance system and analyzing climate risk. Climate risk analysis involves evaluating scenarios, risk assessment, and developing risk reduction strategies. Types of climate risk. Physical risk. Climate change poses risk to various sectors, including extreme weather events, rising sea levels, changing precipitation patterns, and ocean acidifications. Transition risk include policy and legal change, technological advancement, market change, and stranded assets. Socioeconomic risk include health impact, food and water security, economic disruption, social displacement, and inequalities. If we give an example of climate risk, these risks include melting Arctic ice, drought in Cape Town, wildfire in Australia, flooding in Bangladesh, and coral bleaching on the Great Barrier Reef. Data requirements for effective climate adaptation, accurate and reliable data is essential for effective adaptation strategies, assessing impact, and managing risk. Data requirements include climate change observation, sectoral data, risk assessment data, and climate impact data. Climate change observation data, it refers to information collected and analyzed to understand change in Earth's climate system over time. Sectoral data refers to information and statistical that are organized and analyzed based on specific sectors or industries of an economy. Risk assessment data, it refers to the information and analysis used to assess and measure the potential risk and hazards associated with various activities, process or systems. Climate impact data, information and evidence documenting the effects of climate change on various aspects of Earth systems, ecosystems, and human communities. If we give an example of data requirement for effective climate adaptation, USA New York City launched One NUC to address climate change vulnerabilities and risks using data-driven analytics to develop adaptation strategies and prioritize investment in infrastructure and community resilience. The Netherlands developed the Delta program, while Colombia established the National Climate Change Information System to support decision making and adaptation efforts. India established the Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund to support climate change adaptation initiatives. Thank you for listening.